There were 3 toothbrushes in our bathroom that morning. Not 2, 3. And the third one wasn't mine. It was green, the cheap, travel-size kind, and it was wet, still warm from use, like it had just finished brushing his teeth. I stood there, staring at it like I'd discovered a crime scene. My wife was humming in the bedroom, getting dressed. No guilt, no panic, no explanation. I didn't say anything. I just brushed my own teeth next to him, pretending I didn't notice. But my hands were shaking so hard I kept stabbing my gums. Blood mixed with mint. I spat it out like venom. She popped her head in, hair half curled. "You okay?" I nodded. What was I going to say? Hey, did a stranger just brush his teeth next to my razor this morning? I'd played dumb for weeks. But that moment, that was the crack in the dam. Not the lipstick on her hoodie. Not the hotel receipts buried in the trash. Not the girl's trip photos where she forgot to crop out the man's shadow next to her wine glass. No, it was the wet toothbrush. That little plastic truth teller. I went to work like normal. I answered emails. I laughed at a Slack joke. I ate a sandwich I didn't taste. But inside, I was boiling. That night, I didn't confront her. I didn't rage. I didn't cry. Instead, I did something worse. I changed the locks to the guest room, the one he thought he could sneak out of unnoticed. I left the green toothbrush on her pillow, with a note. Not a threatening one. Just a reminder. One line. You invited someone into our home. I invited consequences. She didn't come home that night. But the next morning. Oh, the next morning. That's when everything turned upside down. For her, for him, for everyone. And I never raised my voice once. She didn't come home that night. I didn't ask where she was. I already knew. But at 7:42 a.m., while I was sitting at the kitchen table, drinking coffee I didn't even want, still staring at the stupid green toothbrush in the center of the table, the doorbell rang. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. Quick, sharp, like someone who expected to be answered immediately. I opened the door, still in my t-shirt and pajama pants. And there he was. Not the guy she was sleeping with. Worse, it was her boss. "Is she here?" he asked. No hello. No small talk. Just panic. I blinked. What? He stepped closer, lowering his voice. She didn't show up for her 7 a.m. call. She's not answering her phone. We have the investor team in from Denver, and she was supposed to run point on the meeting deck. I said nothing. Just stepped aside and let him look around. The house was clean. Too clean. I had spent half the night scrubbing surfaces I didn't even know we owned. I needed control over something, anything, and Clorox wipes were all I had. He looked around, then paused when he saw the green toothbrush on the table. He stared at it, then at me, and I saw it in his face, recognition. He knew. He wasn't just her boss. He was the fallback guy, the one she flirted with in meetings, the one she probably vented to about how distant I was, the one who bought her overpriced coffee by accident, the one who thought he was next. "I'll let her know you stopped by," I said calmly, even though I could feel my ears burning. "And if you find her before I do, tell her she left something important here." He left without another word. But the tension in his jaw said everything. She hadn't just played me. She'd played him, too. And he was already unraveling. That was good. I needed him rattled. Because people like him, they make stupid decisions when they feel used. An hour later, I sent one email. One line. To his corporate account. Subject: urgent, internal misconduct policy concern. Attached: a single screenshot. Nothing explicit, but just enough to raise questions. Her holding a wine glass, her hand on someone's thigh. Blurred background. Hotel curtains. Timestamped. I didn't name him. I didn't need to. HR has a way of sniffing these things out. By the time she finally walked through the door at noon, wearing yesterday's clothes and smelling like hotel soap, 3 things had already happened. Her boss had left his office mid-meeting. Her phone had exploded with messages from numbers she didn't recognize. And her laptop, the one she always left on the kitchen counter, was gone. I had placed it in the trunk of my car. Not to hide it, but to buy time. She looked at me, confused. "Why are you dressed already?" I smiled. "I've got somewhere to be." She narrowed her eyes. "Where?" I shrugged. "Don't worry about it. It's not a we thing." And before she could ask anything else, I walked out. Past her. Past the green toothbrush. Past the wreckage she thought she'd never have to clean up. She thought I'd leave silently. That I'd vanish like a ghost and leave her with the house, the lies, and the upper hand. But I wasn't leaving. Not yet. I had one more stop to make. and it was going to change everything. No, really. I did. I took her mother to lunch. And before you say that's petty or weird, hear me out. Her mom always liked me more than she liked her own daughter. I mean, that's not even a joke. She once told me during Thanksgiving that I was the most stable choice her daughter ever made. I laughed at the time, but now, it felt like the universe had left me a weapon disguised as a sweet elderly woman with passive-aggressive pearls. So I called her and said, "Would you like to get lunch? Just us?" She agreed too fast. We met at this little place near her church, the one with the limp grilled cheese and terrible service. She showed up with her hair done like it was Sunday. That's how I knew I had her attention. We chatted for 5 minutes about nothing. The weather, road work, my facial hair. Then I said, "I think there's something going on with Lila." Her whole posture changed. She didn't ask what kind of something. She just waited. So I pulled out my phone and slid it across the table. One photo. Nothing graphic. Just enough. Her face dropped. "Oh, that's all," she said. "Oh." She took a slow sip of water, like she was rewinding the last 6 months in her mind. Then she asked, "Is that the boy from the conference last year?" I blinked. "Boy?" So I asked, "You know him?" "Oh, honey," she said. "He was the intern." Intern. Suddenly, everything made sense. Why he looked so damn young. Why he was using phrases like cinnamon skin and can't wait to be your secret again. He wasn't some confident grown man. He was a kid playing out his first secret affair. I leaned in and whispered, "Does she know you know?" Her answer? "She will." She stood up, took her napkin off her lap, walked out without saying goodbye, and I sat there, stunned, watching the check flutter in the breeze like it belonged to someone else's story. When I got home, Lila was sitting on the couch, pale, knees pulled to her chest. She didn't ask me where I'd been, because her mom had already called, and that was when I realized I didn't need to destroy Lila. She was going to implode all by herself. I didn't leave a note inside the envelope. That was the point. It was a plain manila envelope, unsealed, sitting right in the center of our kitchen counter when she walked in from her shower. Her hair was dripping onto the hardwood floor. She had a towel wrapped tight around her body like armor. I didn't even look up from my coffee. She froze the moment she saw it. I could hear her breath hitch. "What's this?" she asked. I shrugged without turning my head. "Open it." She didn't move. For 10 seconds, she just stood there like the envelope might explode. Then, slowly, she peeled it open. Inside were exactly 6 printed photos. High quality, glossy, time-stamped. All of them from different nights. All of them of her. None of them were selfies. Hotel lobbies. Back seats of Ubers. A blurry mirror reflection with a shirtless silhouette behind her. One photo was taken from a distance, her walking out of a building hand in hand with a man who wasn't me, at midnight. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She sat down across from me and whispered, "How long have you known?" I looked at her and said, "Long enough to get tired of knowing." She rubbed her temples, like she could massage the guilt into dust. "You could have just told me." "No," I said quietly. "You could have just not lied." For a few minutes, neither of us said anything. Just the sound of the fridge humming and her wet hair dripping on the floor. Then she tried the one move I was actually hoping for. "I'll end it. I swear. I'll fix this. We'll go to counseling. We'll reset everything." She reached for my hand, but I didn't take it. I just asked, "Is this the first time?" And her silence was the loudest answer I've ever heard in my life. I stood up, walked past her, didn't say another word. But before I left the house, I stopped in the hallway, turned back, and said one thing. "You should pack a bag." Her eyes widened. "You're kicking me out." "No," I said. "He is." And then I walked out the front door. She had no idea where I was going, but she was about to find out. You know how everyone always says, "Be careful who you talk to. You never know who knows who." Yeah, that finally worked in my favor. I didn't message her affair partner. I didn't message his girlfriend or her coworkers or her friends. I messaged someone who wasn't even in her life anymore. At least not officially. His name was Caleb. Her ex-fiancé. The guy she almost married 2 years before we met. The guy she told me was unstable, jealous, and emotionally manipulative. I never doubted her story. She cried when she told it. I believed everything. I was such an idiot. But now, sitting in my parked car outside a library I hadn't stepped foot in since college, I found Caleb's name online. Took me 15 minutes. He owned a small tech consulting firm now. Still lived in state. And most importantly, he'd posted a photo 2 years ago. A blurry candid of him and my wife, smiling, laughing, holding hands, with the caption, "Some endings don't feel like endings." I remember her saying she hated him. But in that photo, she looked more alive than she ever looked around me. So I sent him a message. A short one. No drama. Just, "Hi Caleb. You don't know me, but I think your ex-fiancé and I have something in common. Let me know if you'd like to compare timelines." That's it. No details. No accusations. Just bait. He replied 8 minutes later. "Is this about Travis?" I almost dropped my phone. I hadn't mentioned any names. So I called him. And for 45 minutes, I sat in my car and listened to a complete stranger unravel the version of my wife I thought I knew. He told me she'd cheated on him, too. Twice. But convinced him both times that he was the problem. He said she was addicted to the high of being chased, and that she once told him, "I only feel powerful when I'm lying to someone." I didn't speak for most of the call. At the end, he said, "Sorry, man. I know that probably didn't help." But it did. It helped more than anything. Because now I knew this wasn't about Travis, or me, or anyone else. It was about her. She was broken long before I showed up. And I spent years thinking I had failed her. That I wasn't exciting enough, or spontaneous enough, or man enough. But she wasn't chasing someone better. She was chasing the feeling of being wanted by anyone. I ended the call, drove home, walked in through the door like I had just come back from getting groceries. She was sitting at the kitchen table, her suitcase half zipped on the floor beside her. She looked up at me like a teenager waiting for a verdict. "Are you going to divorce me?" she asked. I didn't answer. I just walked to the bedroom, closed the door, and for the first time in a long time, I slept. She thought I'd leave. She thought I'd snap. She had no idea that silence was worse. And the real storm? It was still coming. The invitation had been sitting on our counter for 2 weeks, one of those glossy envelopes with gold foil lettering and a fake wax seal. Her younger sister was getting married in 4 weeks, and of course, we were invited as a couple. She hadn't touched it. I knew why. Her sister knew something was wrong, even if no one had said it out loud yet. And Lila couldn't bear the idea of sitting through a family gathering pretending we were still whole. So I opened it myself. I checked the box that said, "Attending, one guest." And in the space where it asked for dietary restrictions, I wrote, "None, but please seat me far from the liar in the silver dress." I sealed the envelope, walked to the nearest mailbox, and dropped it in without a second thought. When I came home, she was in the bedroom, on the floor, surrounded by folded clothes and piles of indecision. She looked up like she expected me to yell, or cry, or throw something. Instead, I said, "Your sister's wedding? I'll be there." She blinked. "What?" I RSVP'd. "Just me." She opened her mouth, then closed it. I saw the flicker of panic behind her eyes. Because she knew what it meant. I was taking our story public. Not by shouting. Not by exposing her to the world in some humiliating post. But by showing up alone, in front of everyone who knew us, and letting the silence speak for itself. "You're trying to embarrass me," she said finally. I laughed. A bitter, tired laugh. "You embarrassed yourself. I'm just not covering for you anymore." She didn't respond. Just sat there staring at the wall, like maybe if she blinked slowly enough, she'd wake up in a different version of her life. Later that night, she got a call. I heard her in the hallway, whispering through tears. It was her sister. The RSVP had arrived. Early. I heard Lila say, "I don't know why he's doing this. He's trying to punish me." And then the silence on the other end was so loud, I almost felt bad. Until I heard her sister reply, "He's not punishing you. He's finally being honest." That was the moment it all shifted. Not because I hurt her, but because she realized I didn't need to. I just had to stop pretending she hadn't already hurt herself. It was the quiet that got to me. The kind of quiet that makes your ears ring because your brain starts filling in all the blanks you're too afraid to ask out loud. We'd barely spoken in 3 days. She slept in the guest room now, and every time I walked past the door, I could hear the creak of her bed as she shifted in the dark, like her body was restless even when her words had gone still. I think she thought the worst was over, that we'd settled into a cold, distant truce, that maybe I would get over it. But I wasn't interested in truce. I was interested in truth. So I sat down across from her that Sunday morning, and I asked for just one thing. "Tell me why," I said. Not the surface stuff. Not, "we grew apart," or "I felt lonely." I want the real reason. The thing you've never said to anyone. She looked at me like I was asking her to give blood. I don't know, she whispered. You do, I said. You just don't want me to see you after you say it. She stared down at her coffee for so long, I thought she'd let the moment pass. Then she said, I thought you were safe. Boring, maybe, but safe. And I guess I got bored of safe. I nodded slowly. Not because I agreed, but because I finally understood. You don't think I'm boring anymore? I asked. She laughed bitterly. No. Now I think you're terrifying. That part surprised me. Why? Because you didn't yell. You didn't beg. You didn't fall apart. You're just watching me drown in my own mess. And somehow that's worse. I stood up. I walked to the hallway. And from the closet, I pulled out a single cardboard box. Inside it was every letter I'd written her over the years. Anniversary cards. Birthday notes. The one I wrote her before our wedding and never gave her because I thought it was too emotional. I handed it to her and said, I'm asking you to do one thing. Read these. Every single one. And after that, you'll know what I'm asking for. She opened the lid, looked inside, and her hands started to tremble. I can't, she said. I already know what they say. No, I said. You used to know? You don't anymore. I left her there with the box in her lap. And as I walked away, I realized this wasn't about saving our marriage anymore. It was about making her see it before I burned it down for good. And if she couldn't, then the final part of this story would write itself. The box sat on the table for 2 days before she touched it. I didn't push. I didn't ask. I just lived in the quiet, like a man who'd already survived the storm and was just waiting for the final wave to pull back into the ocean. On the third evening, I found her in the living room, the lid open, letters spread around her like autumn leaves. She was crying, not the performative kind I'd seen before. These were quiet tears, the kind people don't even realize are falling until their shirts are damp. When she saw me, she didn't flinch, didn't wipe her face. She held up the smallest envelope, the wedding letter I never gave her. You meant all of this? She asked. I nodded. Every word. Back then I did. She stared at it a moment longer, then folded it back up with care, placed it in the box, and whispered, I'm sorry. Not just for what I did, but for forgetting how much I had. It should have felt like victory. It didn't. It felt like grief wrapped in closure. I'm not here to punish you, Lila, I said. I wanted the truth so I could finally stop rewriting our history in my head. She nodded slowly. So what now? I took a deep breath and told her something I hadn't even planned on saying until that very moment. I'm not filing for divorce. Her eyes widened. You're not. But I am moving out. For now. Maybe for a while. Maybe forever. I need space to figure out who I am without you. You need space to sit in the silence and decide what you want from the rest of your life. She looked like she was about to protest, but she didn't. She just whispered, That's fair. I left the next morning with one suitcase, one photo of us from before everything fell apart, and the quiet knowledge that I didn't need revenge to find peace. She texted me later that week. Just 4 words. I started therapy today. I didn't reply right away, but when I did, I wrote, Good. Heal for you, not for me. And that was it. No dramatic ending. No final blow. Just truth, growth, and the beginning of a life that finally belonged to me again.